all of you welcome to my lecture. And last day I promise you, today I start my lesson. You have to watch another video. It's a last day lesson summarizing video. Briefly, you can take idea, nice slides, and some additional facts. Facts mean notes or some subject-wise things are there. They are mean in a video. First, before today starting a video, you have to watch that video. Then after that, I start today lesson, and end of this today lesson. Again, you have another video. That video also the summarizing video for today lesson. But think I okay, whatever things. First, you move to that. Shall we move?
Now we're going to start by talking about motivation. And typically when we think about motivation, we tend to think about how hard people try, how inspired they might be to do something. And as we talk about motivation in this unit, we're going to talk about the process that accounts for intensity, direction, and persistence of effort. And what's really interesting about motivation is that it can not only vary by individual, but can also vary within individuals at times. So it's sometimes you may feel very motivated, whereas at others you don't. All right, let's get into this and break this down. The first component of motivation we're going to talk about here is intensity. Okay, and intensity is concerned with how hard a person tries. You'll notice the quote I put on this slide is from Steve Prefontaine, a great American distance runner, who said, "To give anything less than your best is to sacrifice the gift." And Pre was known for always trying as hard as he could at all times, even when his coaches told him not to. Okay, so that's an example of high intensity. Other people may pace themselves differently. They may not give everything they can at one moment. And that might be a lower level of intensity or maybe a moderate level of intensity. The next component to motivation we're going to talk about is direction. And this is working in the orientation that benefits your organization or you as an individual. Okay, and here I've got another sports quote. This one is from Michael Jordan. He said, "You can practice shooting 8 hours a day, but if your technique is wrong, then all you become is very good at shooting the wrong way." And this one really resonates with me because when I was a kid, my parents set my basketball hoop at 9.5 feet tall. And I would always practice shooting baskets at 9.5 feet. And at 9.5 feet tall, I was great. As soon as I went down to the park and got on a regular 10-foot rim, it was a disaster. Absolute disaster once that happened. Okay, but we see this as a practical issue in school. We see this as a practical issue in organizations. So, for example, in school, oftentimes students will study really hard for an exam and then maybe not do as well on the exam as they wanted to, right? And I'll meet with them during office hours and talk about their study techniques. And as we go over their study strategy maybe wasn't geared towards things where they needed to direct their strategy. So maybe they weren't focusing on their weaknesses as much as they needed to. All right. We could also see this in our organizations as well. Okay. Sometimes employees work really hard, but it's not necessarily on a project that you need them to put time and energy into, or they're not prioritizing the right tasks. All of these things that we're discussing here have to do with your direction. The final component to motivation that we have to talk about here is persistence. And this is a measure of how long a person can maintain their effort. Okay. So persistence is really important. I remember when I was managing, I often pushed my people pretty hard. All right. And one of my regrets when I look back is that sometimes I pushed them at a level of intensity that was so high that there was no way that they could have long-term persistence at that level of intensity. Okay. So people could maybe work really hard for a week straight, but at some point they couldn't work late every night. They had to kind of trail off. and how long they would be able to put this intense effort in for was reflective of their persistence. So now that we've established what motivation is, let's look at some theories of motivation. The first one we'll discuss today is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, and Maslow's hierarchy basically said that we have different levels of needs. Okay, and you see those different levels kind of marked out here on the pyramid, right? And basically what Maslow said was you have to meet the needs of one level before you move on trying to satisfy the needs of another. All right, so at the very base of Maslow's pyramid, we have physiological needs. All right, and what physiological needs refer to is they refer to your physical needs. So this could be things like hunger, thirst, shelter, basically things that we need to survive physically. All right, then after that, Maslow said we had needs pertaining to safety and security. All right, and these needs here, they would be exactly what we would think of. They'd be like protection from physical and emotional harm. All right, then once we've met that, we would try to meet our needs for social belongingness, okay, or interpersonal relationships with others, friendship, things of that nature. Then we move on to esteem, okay, and esteem deals with things like achievement and things of that nature, okay? Self respect, autonomy, basically all the different things that make us feel better about ourselves. All right. And then finally, at the top of Maslow's hierarchy, we have self actualization. And this really deals with trying to meet our greater potential, okay, to be what it is that we can become. Now, if you're trying to walk through the intuition behind Maslow's hierarchy of needs, what you could say is you could say, as we identify meeting a lower level need before we can meet a higher level need, think about your physiological needs. Okay, so we talk about food, shelter, things of that nature. All right. If people consider their work to be something that supports their physiological needs, right? So they might not be able to afford to lose hours or to lose their job if they're going to meet their physiological needs. All right. And because of that, what we could run into is a situation where people are willing to work late and maybe miss going to their bowling league or miss going to a social event because this social belongingness component is not something that they're worried about or focused on until their physiological needs are met. Now, as we talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's very important to recognize what we know about Maslow's, why we cover it, and what you need to know. So, the first thing I'm going to tell you is that there's not an awful lot of support out there in the research for Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's very intuitive as we think of Maslow's hierarchy. It makes a lot of sense, so people like it, but there's not a lot of support for it out there. So, why do we teach it if there's not a lot of support? Well, the answer to that is pretty simple. Okay, a lot of people still talk about Maslow's hierarchy, and leaders talk about Maslow's hierarchy, and people in organizations talk about Maslow's hierarchy. So if you go through a class on organizational behavior or you take a lesson on motivation and it doesn't mention Maslow's hierarchy at all, you're not going to be very well prepared for those conversations. All right, so the key takeaway that you do need to recognize here once you understand the basic structure of Maslow's hierarchy is that even though there is a lot of intuitive logic behind the model that we just looked at, there's not a lot of validation for it, and it hasn't really been researched in over half a century. Next, we're going to talk about Herzberg's two-factor theory or the motivation hygiene theory. Okay, and what this dealt with is this dealt with how we look at satisfaction and dissatisfaction in the workplace. So if we start and we think about the traditional viewpoint of satisfaction and dissatisfaction, we would think of satisfaction as being at one end of the spectrum, and we would think of dissatisfaction as being at the other end of the spectrum. Now, Herzberg came along and said, wait a minute, that's not necessarily the case. Okay, there might be things that motivate people in organizations, and those motivating factors might lead to satisfaction. Okay, but the absence of those motivating factors might not be dissatisfaction. It might just be the absence of satisfaction. So there's no satisfaction. All right. Then Hertzberg said we have hygiene factors. And these are the things that people expect to have within the organization. These are kind of like our basics that we expect to be there no matter what. And Hertzberg said if those things aren't there, then we should have dissatisfaction, because when we violate people's expectations, they're going to be dissatisfied. But he said those things being there are not going to satisfy people. They're just going to keep them from being dissatisfied. Now, what's the difference between a satisfier and a dissatisfier, or a motivator and a hygiene factor, you might be wondering? So over here on this side, we have things that Hertzberg would say would lead to extreme satisfaction. And those things are achievement, we have recognition, we have the work itself, responsibility, advancement, and growth. All right, then over here on the other side, we have things that could lead to dissatisfaction or hygiene factors. Okay, and those are policy and administration, supervision, relationships with supervisors, work conditions, salary, believe it or not. Money falls over here on the hygiene factors, okay, and relationships with peers. Now, like Maslow's hierarchy, Hertzberg's theory has been pretty influential, but does have some opportunity for more support in research. There is limited support for Hertzberg's theory in the research. All right, and one of the questions with it deals really with the reliability of the methodology, particularly because it relies on self-reports. Okay, and the challenge is that Hertzberg's theory has historically been looked at by having people look back on their experiences and think about times that they were satisfied and dissatisfied. And there can be some bias involved in those types of reflections. Often, when we look back on our past, we can think of times that were really great times when we reflect on them, but in the moment, maybe we didn't feel as great about them as we do when we're reflecting. So that's a little bit of the challenge here, dealing with Hertzberg's two-factor theory. Now, another theory that's been pretty influential is McClelland's theory of needs. Okay, and this theory focuses on three different needs. The first being the need for achievement. Okay, need for achievement deals with our drive to excel, to succeed, to achieve high standards in relationship to others. All right, and for the image here, I used a little bit of a skee ball area, and you'll notice that I pointed to the 50-point circle. I did not point to the 100-point circles. Okay, the reason I pointed to the 50-pointer here is pretty simple. People who are high on a need for achievement, they want to hit a high standard. And this 50-pointer falls into the high standard, right? Because the minimum that you can get is 10 or 20. Then you can get 30 or 40. 50 is a little bit harder, right? And if you miss the 50, your ball comes down here and it could go down into a 10 slot, all right? But 50 is not all that bad, because you can hit a straight shot, the same type of shot you'd use to hit a 30 or a 40. You can hit a straight shot and get right up into the 50. And if you miss it, you might end up landing here. So you're not going to be in such a terrible shot if you shoot the 50. All right. I didn't point to the 100 because the 100 requires a high angle shot. Okay. And if you miss it, you're only going to get 10. There's no chance of getting a rebound where you're going to get a few more points. So this is a much lower percentage shot over here, and it also has no rebound possibility, whereas this is a higher percentage shot and it's got better rebound possibilities. So how does that relate to McClelland's need for achievement? Well, high achievers, according to McClelland, they want to beat the standard, but they also want to have a pretty good chance at success. So someone shooting over here might be more of a gambler, whereas somebody shooting for this tough shot that is doable and has good rebound potential, that's more of a high achiever. The next need, according to McClelland, is what we call a need for power. All right. And a need for power is a little bit different from a need for status. The need for power really deals with having to make other people behave in a way that they might not have behaved otherwise. Okay, so you don't just need people to succeed, but you need people to succeed in doing things the way you want them done. And this might sound like a bad thing when you think about it, but there's probably some positions where a high need for power is really helpful. So consider, for instance, a position where safety standards are terribly important, right? And maybe people don't naturally follow the safety standards, but failure to follow them could lead to a serious injury. Okay, in that type of case, a need for power could actually be helpful in leadership because getting people to behave in exactly the way they need to behave would be critical to success in that environment. McClellan's final need is the need for affiliation, and this is just the need for a desire to have friendly and close interpersonal relationships with other people. Although there has been some good support and research for McClellan's theory, there are some challenges using it in practice. And one of those challenges is that because the needs are subconscious, or at least theorized as being subconscious, it may be difficult to measure them. Okay, so someone may have a high need for power, but may not consciously be aware of it. So we might not be able to measure that accurately in practice. Okay, there's also a little bit of limitation to the practical effect here because sometimes we don't use these needs or knowledge of these needs to actually motivate people, but they get used to label people based on observations. And there's not a whole lot of practical value to using this knowledge to label people as opposed to using the knowledge to actually motivate them and impact their performance. Now, as we move forward in this video, I want you to pause and think for a moment. Why are you here today? Why are you watching this video? Well, hopefully you're watching the video because you want to be. And the reason I say that is that according to self-determination theory, people prefer to feel like they have control over their own actions. So if you're watching this video because it's something that you want to do, then that should put you in a more positive state and better prepare you for learning. Okay. Building on self-determination theory, we have something called cognitive evaluation theory. And this theory basically says that there are times when people are paid for work, and as soon as they get paid to do work, it feels less like something they want to do and more like something they have to do. All right. So I'll give you an example. I used to work with an economic development engine, and this economic development engine, it had employees who worked in there as consultants, but it also had a lot of volunteers. And every now and then, a volunteer would get hired to become an employee. And one of the things that you often saw over time was that when volunteers became employees, they actually lost some of the passion for the work that they were doing because now that they were working and getting paid and had bosses, the work wasn't as intrinsically valuable to them as it had been when it was volunteer work. Now, as much as we just said that paying people for work might actually decrease their motivation or make the work less rewarding for them, extrinsic rewards can be a little bit complicated. Okay, so for one thing, when we use extrinsic rewards for payoffs, sometimes they can be used as a signal that tell employees that they're doing a good job, right? So if you're a salesperson, you get a sales bonus. That sales bonus is communicating a message to you that you did a good job. All right. And self determination theory acknowledges that these rewards can improve your intrinsic motivation under some circumstances. So, for example, perhaps if that bonus signals to you that you're doing a good job, sending you that signal might also help in terms of your intrinsic motivation. Okay. Now, eliminating extrinsic rewards can also shift your perception as to why you work on a task from an external to an internal explanation. But that's a little bit of a complex dynamic because there's obviously going to be repercussions to eliminating extrinsic rewards that people have come to rely on and expect. Now, self concordance tells us that how strongly people's reasons for pursuing goals are consistent with their values impacts their motivation, impacts their satisfaction. So, for example, I value research. I believe that that doing research and doing high quality research informs my teaching. So doing good research informs my teaching. It makes me a better teacher. Being a good teacher also informs me of research ideas. There's a synergy there. That's part of my core values as an educator. All right. So when my goals at work include doing high quality research, all right, then I tend to find myself in a situation where I'm more satisfied with my job. But when my goals don't incorporate doing high quality research, they don't incorporate that value, then I'm more likely to find myself in a situation where I'm not quite as satisfied. And that's building off this idea of self-concordance. So what does all this mean in a practical sense? So for individuals, for you maybe as students going out and thinking about getting your first career-oriented job, make sure you try to choose jobs for reasons other than extrinsic rewards. Choose jobs that, in addition to providing you the salary and benefits that you need, also are going to provide you the opportunity to meet some of your intrinsic goals. All right. And for organizations, you also want to find ways to provide intrinsic incentives. Now, as an organization, can you really provide an intrinsic incentive? That might be kind of tough, right? Because they're intrinsic. But what you can do is you can provide a structure that allows people to meet their intrinsic needs. So the example that I'll give you here is Google years ago used to have 20% flex time or 20% creative time is really I think what they called it. And basically they told employees 20% of your week should be dedicated towards something that you care about doing. Okay. And we're not going to tell you what to do with that time. And they got many great projects out of that. Google Voice was a project that came out of that. And so it was actually a highly successful program for them from a creativity standpoint, but it also allowed employees to pursue some of their interest and provided some intrinsic incentives. Next, we're going to move on to goal setting theory here. And goal setting theory tells us that telling an employee what needs to be done and how much effort they need should help motivate them. So, specific goals will increase performance if they know exactly what it is they need to do. If the goals are difficult and the employees buy into them, that should result in higher performance than if we provide easy goals. And feedback is also going to lead to higher performance than not providing feedback. Some other factors that can influence the goals performance relationship are goal commitment. So people will achieve if they believe that they can achieve. Okay, they also have to want to achieve. All right, so if people don't believe that they can do something, they don't want to do it, then their goal commitment is going to be lower. All right, task characteristics also help with the goal performance relationship. So if tasks are simple and they're independent, so you're not reliant on someone else or you're not reliant upon the success of another task, then those types of task characteristics are going to be more conducive to high performance. And culture can also influence the goal performance relationship. And different people are motivated by goals differently. All right. So people with a promotion focus, they're looking for advancement, accomplishment, and they're going to look towards situations that are going to drive them closer to their desired goals. Okay. So they might be more likely to do things that are going to result in high task performance. They might be more likely to be innovative or engage in organizational citizenship behavior. But the key point here is that people with a promotion focus are going to be a little less risk averse and they're going to strive to succeed. Now, people with a prevention focus, they're going to kind of resemble being risk averse a little more. All right, and what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to do everything that they need to do to meet their obligations, but they want to avoid conditions that pull them away from desired goals. So it's what we call kind of a safety performance. All right, they're basically going to look to just put themselves in a situation where they can do what they need to do, but not take much risk as they move forward. Now, as we think about setting goals that are going to be effective Okay, we've got a list of characteristics over here on the top that we're going to look at. And I want you to think of them in terms of setting what we call SMART goals. And I want to use this acronym because you're going to see this acronym or hear this acronym a lot when you're in industry. Okay, so the first component that we talk about here is goal specificity. All right, and that's obviously the same as the specific component to a SMART goal. All right, then I'm going to skip participation for a second. We have explicit time period. Okay, and that's obviously related to this time-based component. All right, then we have performance feedback over here. And performance feedback really is related to this idea of having goals that are measurable. Okay, and then the last piece we had that we haven't discussed is participation in decision making. And this one here is really, I believe, related to the A and the R in SMART. Because if you look at this and you connect it to being attainable and to being relevant, having participation, having employee participation in setting goals helps to ensure that those goals are attainable and relevant. And early on in this course, we talked a little bit about the OB model and thinking about the relationship between the macro or the organizational level outcomes and the micro or the individual level outcomes. Okay. And this same idea applies to goal setting. All right. So we start with thinking about what are our goals for the entire organization. All right. Once we identify those goals, we look at what do different divisions need to do in order for the organizational goal to be achieved. Okay. Then when we think about the divisions, we break it down to what do our different departments need to do within the divisions for the divisions to meet their goals. And then as we look within the departments, we come down to what do the individuals need to do down here. All right. And you can have more than a few levels to your organization and work down through the same set of cascading objectives. But the point is we start with our large organizational goals and then we break them down by unit until we get to the goals that have to be set for individuals. And one of the challenges with goal setting though is that we also have to make sure that our goals don't put our employees in a situation where goals are in conflict with ethics. All right, because if that happens, that can be a little bit problematic. And one example that I'm gonna dive into a little bit when we talk about the Pygmalion effect in a few slides is when I was in industry, we had some pretty high sales goals from month to month, and the rewards for hitting the goals were great. All right, the penalties for missing them for upper management were a little bit of a challenge to deal with, and there were certainly some times that there was some pressure put on us as managers to to create some ethical violations in order to make sure we hit our goals. Like I said, when we get into the Pygmalion effect, I'm going to break that down in a little more detail. The next theory that we're going to break down in terms of motivation is self-efficacy theory. All right, and this deals with an individual's belief that they're capable of performing a task. And there are four components that we look at in self-efficacy theory to discuss how do we improve people's self-efficacy. Because the higher someone's self-efficacy is, the higher their belief is that they're capable of performing a task. And this is related to what we just talked about with goals, right? The higher their efficacy is, the more successful they're going to be. All right, so we start with an active mastery. And an active mastery basically means that people have to practice tasks. Okay, the more you do a task, the more you're going to believe that you can do it. All right, and that's probably the most important component to self-efficacy. The second component is vicarious modeling. So if someone shows you how to do something, you're more likely to believe that you can do it. Okay, if you've ever been to a carnival, you see people who work at the stands, they'll come out and they'll show you that they can win a game before they ask you if you want to try to play. And their point is they're trying to build up your belief that you can do it. Now, in that case, it's a little bit different because they're hoping you're going to lose at the end of the day, but they're trying to increase your motivation so that by increasing your self efficacy, so that you will pay money and play the game. All right. The third component to improving our self efficacy is verbal persuasion. And this is just people telling you that you have the ability to complete a task, to be successful. All right. So, very often when I send emails to students, I'll try to make sure I have a message in there. You're going to be okay, or you could do this, or just something of that nature, right? And that's me trying to have some verbal persuasion in there to increase their self-efficacy and help motivate them and help them perform at a higher level. And the fourth component is arousal. Okay. And this is really just getting psyched up. So if you've played sports, we have different things that we do. We might do a cheer at the end of practice. We might do some activities to psych each other up. Okay. But sometimes people do this in organizations too. When I worked at Home Depot, they actually had a cheer that they did at Home Depot. It was a little bit cheesy, but it did get people excited sometimes. Okay. Those are the four components that are the most important to improving people's self-efficacy. Now, to make sure you really have a good feel for what self-efficacy is, we'll take a look at some of the types of questions we use in a scale to measure it. So the first one is, if I can't do a job the first time, I keep trying until I can. All right. The second one is, if something looks too complicated, I will not even bother to try it. And the third one is, I feel insecure about my ability to do things. Now, obviously, these last two here are reverse scored. So if you were high on those two questions, that would indicate you were low on self-efficacy, whereas the first one is scored normally. So if you were high on this one, that would indicate that you were high on self-efficacy. Now, if we look at the model over here, the model basically says a manager sets a difficult, specific goal or task, and the individual has confidence that their level of performance will be attained. Okay, so they have self-efficacy, and that ultimately should lead to the individual having higher job or task performance. The challenge as a manager here is, as you set the difficult task, you need to make sure that it's challenging enough that it's going to be motivating, but not too difficult. Because if you set a task that's going to be too difficult, then we're gonna have a situation here where self-efficacy will not be high. Okay, if the task is too difficult, self-efficacy won't be high, and then that's going to have a negative impact on the job performance or the task performance. Now, the implications of self-efficacy theory, essentially what we're figuring is going to happen here is we're going to have something called the Pygmalion effect, or a self-fulfilling prophecy, where essentially you believe you could do something, you envision yourself doing it, and because you believe it and envision it, you're able to make it happen. All right, so I told you I was going to bring up ethical issues when we talked about the Pygmalion effect. So here's what I got for you. One of the companies I used to work at, we had monthly sales targets, and these monthly sales targets, they were important. We got bonuses if we hit them. All right, for higher ranked people, it was a little bit problematic if you missed. All right, and I had taken over a failing location and I had turned it profitable. I had hit something like 18 monthly sales quotas in a row. If you went back to my previous position, I had something like, I'd only missed 2 out of my last 24, or 2 out of my last 30, something like that. It was pretty much expected I was going to hit my quota. All right. So Monday morning call, week left in the month of January. My boss says to me, "All right, you're good. You're going to hit, right?" I said, "No, we're going to miss this month. Weather was terrible. It was things were not going in our favor." I said, "No, we're going to miss." And he said, "You can't miss. You always hit." And I said, "Well, we're going to miss this month. Um, we don't have the numbers to make it work." And he says, "You're going to hit. We'll make sure of it." And he hangs up. And about a half an hour later, I get a call from someone in another location. They're telling me they want me to bill some orders for them and that I'll have to pay them back later on. And this is something, basically what they want to do is they want to manipulate sales. They were going to give me some sales this month. I'd have to give them some sales a different month, and everyone would hit their quotas and move on. But this was actually against my company's code of ethics. All right, so that's an example of where goals were inspiring people to violate ethics. Okay. And I said, "No, I'm not going to do that." And they said, "Well, you better call the boss and tell him." So I called my district manager and I said, "I'm not going to do that. It's a violation of our code of ethics." And he basically said, "What's that? What's that?" Um, Acted as if it didn't exist. And I said, no, I don't break the rules like that. That's not what I'm going to do. If I'm going to miss, I'm going to miss. And he called me some choice words. There were some very inappropriate statements made. And ultimately, he hung up and said, well, you better find a way to hit your quota. So I called my team into my office and I said, look, this is what just happened. I said, you all know that I stand behind my ethics. I said, I'm not about to do what they asked me to do. I said, so I want to make sure that you're aware of it because I want to make sure nobody tries to work around me. And my top salesperson, he looks at me and he says, I don't like you very much. He used to like to come in late a lot, and I didn't let him come in late. So he says, I don't like you very much. He goes, but I really hate your boss. He's like, we're going to find a way to hit this quota. And he got the entire team inspired. He got them, you know, aroused, so to speak. He got them pumped up about the idea that we are location 0629 and we do things the ethical way, and we're going to show them that we don't need to break their rules. And my team went out there and they put together a sales plan that I don't know how they pulled this off given what the context was, but we actually hit our sales quota that month. And to this day I say this was an example of Pygmalion effect, because my crew came together and they said, we have to do this because we have to demonstrate that doing what's right works, and we're going to do it. And there was no doubt in their mind that they were going to be able to do it, and they just went out, they dreamed it happening, and they made it happen. Now, the next theory that we're going to talk about here is B.F. Skinner's reinforcement theory. And you might hear this talked about in the context of behaviorism. What Skinner did was Skinner worked more in a space that we tend to think of as biology, but he looked at animals and how we reinforce animals' behavior and how reinforcement changes the way they behave in the future. And this is a picture of Skinner as he's about to teach a pigeon to turn in a 360-degree circle. And what he does is every time the pigeon turns left, he gives it a little bit of a treat. Each time it turns left a little bit more, he gives it more of a treat until it does a complete circle. All right. And some people will argue that reinforcement theory really only applies in biological context, but it does apply to humans. And I think one of the best illustrations for me of this was shortly after having the argument with a colleague about whether or not Skinner's theory applied to people. I had gone out for a run. I was running towards a crosswalk. The crosswalk sign went from the white cross sign to a countdown saying there was only 20 seconds left or something like that. As soon as I saw the countdown, I didn't even think. I just sprinted across the crosswalk. Got to the other side and realized, oh yeah, I don't need to be here. What I had had a reaction to the crosswalk sign changing because of how it's reinforced. If you don't get across in time, you don't get to cross the street. So that's an example where that comes in. But how does this come in our organizations? Well, the example I like to use in organizations for my students is think about a student coming in late to class. They come in 10 minutes late, and you say every time they come in, "Oh, thanks for joining us today. Nice to see you today." You say something that embarrasses them, right? They come in late three times, you embarrass them three times. Well, what's going to happen the next time they're about to come in late? They're going to make the decision, most likely, not to come in at all because they don't want to go through that embarrassment. And what we've done there is we've, through our reinforcement, trained them not to come in late and instead not to come in at all. So we have to be very careful how we reinforce things within our organizations. So Skinner's reinforcement theory basically says that behavior is a function of consequences, and this might appear to be in conflict with goal setting theory, which says goal setting is a cognitive approach as an individual's purpose directs his or her action, but the two can kind of work in conjunction in some sense. All right, and the sense would be that as people work towards a goal, the way that consequences impact them are going to reinforce and change their behavior as to how they achieve the goal. All right, so there can be some complementary nature between reinforcement theory and goal setting, even though they may look at first like they are in conflict with each other. The next theory we're going to discuss here is social learning theory. And social learning theory basically says that we can learn through observation and direct experience. Okay, so there are 4 different processes that are critical to social learning theory. The first one is attentional processes. So a model only works when we recognize it and pay attention to critical features. So if we're zoned out, if we're not paying attention, we're not going to learn, we're not going to be motivated. Process 2 is retention processes. All right, so the influence of a model depends on how well you remember it once it is gone. Process 3 is motor reproduction processes. All right, so something must be converted to doing. Watching must be converted to doing for the demonstration to be effective. So a demonstration on its own is not going to be effective unless you actually try the task yourself. And finally, reinforcement processes. So positively reinforced behaviors are learned better and perform more often. So if we notice our employees doing something that we want them to do and we thank them for doing that frequently, they're more likely to do it again in the future. Now, Vroom's expectancy theory says there's 3 different relationships that we have to consider along the path from an employee's individual effort to their personal goals. All right. And that understanding these relationships is going to understand how we motivate people. So the first relationship is an individual effort to individual performance. All right. So what do we mean by individual effort to individual performance? If we ask our people to make sales calls, all right, if they make sales calls, is that going to result in them making more sales? All right. If making sales calls results in making more sales, then this relationship, number one here, the effort performance relationship is going to be strong, and that should be motivating. All right. The next relationship is individual performance to organizational rewards. All right. If our employees make more sales, are they going to get a bonus? All right. If making more sales leads to a bonus, then that means that we have a stronger performance reward relationship. So if we have a stronger performance reward relationship, that also should support motivation according to expectancy theory. All right. And then the final component is organizational rewards to personal goals. All right. Is that bonus related to our employees' goals? If the employee's goal is to make money, then we have a strong relationship here between rewards and personal goal relationship. Okay. If, however, the employee's personal goals are something else, maybe they want to get promoted, maybe they don't care that much about earning a bonus right now, but they want to climb the ladder. Okay. In that case, this relationship might be weaker, and we might not be in a situation where the program that we've put in place is going to be highly motivating for that person. To summarize what we just talked about with Vroom's expectancy theory, basically expectancy theory says people are going to act in a certain way depending on the expectation that the response to their action is going to be an outcome that's attractive to them. Now, if we take expectancy theory and we apply it here to think about what are questions that will be asked, that expectancy theory helps to contextualize in terms of understanding people's performance. Um, if I give maximum effort, will it be recognized in my performance appraisal? If I get a good performance appraisal, will it lead to rewards? And if I'm rewarded, are the rewards attractive to me? And if the answer to all 3 of those questions is yes, then employees should be motivated. Another important component to motivation is perceptions of organizational justice. All right, and perceptions of justice basically deal with the relationship between an employee's rewards and the employee's input, or the employee's outcomes and the employee's input. And what we do is we look at outcomes to input for ourselves, and we compare those to outcomes for input for others. All right. And if we find ourselves in a situation where our outcomes than are lower than someone else's outcomes, but our inputs are the same, so the ratio is lower for us than it is for someone else, then we perceive inequity due to being under rewarded. If we find ourselves in a situation where the relationship between outcomes and input is similar for us and other parties, then we find ourselves in a situation where we perceive there to be equity. And there's always the possibility that we can perceive our outcome to input relationship to be higher than that of someone else's. And if that's the case, there's inequity due to being over rewarded. And equity can be complex because there's internal equity and there's external equity. Okay, and with internal equity, the reference point is within the organization. So we're looking at people within our own company as we compare here. Then we have external equity, and with external equity, the reference point can be outside the organization. So to illustrate this, I ask you to consider college professors in two different colleges. So we have college A and we have college B. All right. And we have two different types of college professors here. We have one group that's in humanities and one group that is in business. Okay. And over here in college A, the humanities professor and the business professor maybe don't have equity in terms of pay. Maybe they don't have equity in terms of workload, but there's some type of inequity here. Okay. Where one professor is paid or compensated at a different level than another professor. All right. But if we look at the business professor in college A and we compare them to the business professor in college B, they're compensated fairly similarly. So we have external equity over here, but what we do not have here is internal equity. Okay. Now we take a look up at the top of the model and we look at the humanities professor at college A and the humanities professor at college B, and maybe they're compensated similarly, they have similar workloads. So there's external equity there. All right. Now, this gets even more challenging because maybe we compare them in industry and we see what we have that compares in industry, and maybe the people who are in industry get paid more in both humanities and business. Okay. And in that case, industry maybe is driving some of the pay structure over here just a little bit. Okay. So we've got this internal inequity that we've identified here. All right. Between the humanities professor and the business professor, and puts you in a little bit of a quandary, right? Because obviously we want to resolve the internal inequity issue. But the problem is, how do we resolve the internal inequity issue without creating an inequity issue from the external standpoint? Okay. So if we take and we decrease the pay or increase the workload of the professor who is viewed as having a higher outcome to input ratio, then what we're going to do is we're going to create an external inequity. All right. And we have to address, how is that going to work? Because if we create external inequity, one of the risks that we run is we create the risk that our employees will leave. So, is there a right answer to this? This is a very complex issue, but it's important that we recognize the difference between internal and external equity, because if we don't recognize the difference between them and how they complement each other and the complexity of this issue, we run the risk of making very simple decisions about very complex problems and potentially running into circumstances that are very different from what we anticipated. So what kind of circumstances can we run into when we have issues of equity? Well, when people believe there's inequity, they might change their inputs. Okay? What that means is that they might do things like try a little less hard. They might put a little less time into their work. Okay? They might change their outcomes. All right? This hopefully is not going to happen because this is a pretty negative thing, but in some cases we find employees who steal to kind of compensate for what they believe is being under compensation. All right. sometimes we distort our perceptions of ourselves. Okay, so maybe if I'm being undercompensated and I'm really bothered by this, maybe I start to perceive myself as being a lower quality worker, and that helps justify this for me. Sometimes we distort our perceptions of others. Maybe we just look at other people and see them as being that much better. All right. Maybe we choose a different referent. So if the issue is similar to what we looked at before, maybe instead of comparing ourselves to others within our own organization, we compare ourselves to others who do similar work to us in other organizations. And then the other option, the final option, is you can leave. You could leave the field, you could leave your company, you could leave your job, okay? But you leave. You look to go somewhere else where you can find a more equitable situation. Now, related to equity, we have something called organizational justice, which is our overall perception of what's fair in the workplace. Okay, and there are three different components to justice, to organizational justice. The first is distributive justice. Okay, and this is the perceived fairness of the outcome. So this really relates to what we looked at before. All right, does what I receive at the end of the day match up with what other people receive fairly? All right. The second piece is procedural justice. All right. And with procedural justice, what we're looking at is the process that was used to determine outcomes. Okay, so did I go through the same evaluation process as my peers? Was I evaluated fairly in this process? Okay. And then the third component is interactional justice. And this is just, was I treated with dignity? Was I treated well? All right. So if my manager told me I wasn't getting a raise, did he explain it to me in a nice way that reflected my dignity as a human being, or did he sit down and have a bunch of nasty things to say to me in explaining this? And justice is important in terms of motivation because when employees perceive that there is organizational justice, they tend to have both higher levels of task performance and higher levels of organizational citizenship behavior. Now we're going to touch on job engagement real quick because this was really discussed in more detail in one of our earlier units. Job engagement is the investment of an employee's physical, cognitive, and emotional energies into job performance. So, what are people putting into the work that they're doing? A recent poll done by the Gallup organization showed that more engaged employees are in successful organizations than in average organizations. So, people who are investing more into their work are contributing to more successful organizations than people who aren't investing in their work. So when we try harder, we do better. Seems pretty fairly intuitive here. Now that we've established that engagement is going to be related to performance, we want to think about what makes people more engaged in their job. All right. So if an employee believes it's meaningful to engage in their work, they're going to be engaged. If there's a good match between an individual's values and the organization's values, there's going to be higher levels of engagement and leadership behaviors that inspire workers to do greater work is going to lead to greater engagement. We've all worked for leaders who really inspire us in the past, and we've all worked for leaders who haven't really inspired us. And when we're with people who inspire us, we just tend to be more engaged with what we're doing. So, are highly engaged employees getting too much of a good thing? Is the question. Well, first things first, the construct does overlap a little bit with some other job attitudes. So we need to make sure we recognize that. But there is also a potential dark side to job engagement. And the dark side is that positive relationships between job engagement and work family conflict. And what we mean by that is that for some people, as job engagement increases, so does their work family conflict. All right, so it creates a little bit of a problem for them. And just a little side note here, that is totally me. So, in addition to having research that supports this that we could speak to, I can give you anecdotal evidence on this one in my own life as well. And with that, we've wrapped up our unit here on motivation. Hope you learned something. Hope you enjoyed it. And we'll see you soon.
I think you got a correct idea about last day lesson, and you memorize and you brush up your and you are ready to the lesson. Now my time means today, you and me, we have to start today lesson. And keep it in mind, end of this lesson, you have another video. I am never, again, I am not to mention after this, you have a video. First I finish this lesson. Then after that, you have to directly, that means you have to watch that summarizing video. Okay, keep it in mind that you take your attention. And you know that I'm using some special that robotic things, robotic narration. Sometimes that spellings or sometimes that pronunciation, bit of a different is some of a bit of different. But I think you can take idea because not a big difference in the Asian and that European sounds. But I think you know better than myself. You have a fluent in English also. Then I wish you a bright future, and you have to ready for your exam also. Anyway, today we have to move our lesson. Okay.
Theory.
Sorry.
All managers must understand implications of the ERG theory. All managers must understand that an employee has various needs that must be satisfied at the same time. According to the ERG theory, if the manager focuses solely on one need at a time, then this will not effectively motivate the employee. The frustration regression aspect of ERG theory has an added effect on workplace motivation. For example, if an employee is not provided with growth and advancement opportunities in an organization, then he or she might revert to related needs such as socializing needs. To meet those socializing needs, if the environment or circumstances do not permit it, he might revert to the need for money to fulfill those socializing needs. By the time the manager realizes and discovers this, they will take more immediate steps to fulfill those needs which are frustrated until such time that the employee can again pursue growth. Applying motivational theory to the workplace.
This is the point we have to start to the one by one. One by one mean this paragraph by paragraph I explain. But you have to keep your deep attention because this is the point, especially what we need.
Applying motivational theory to the workplace. Many successful companies have gotten where they are through the efforts of motivated employees who worked with their superiors to make their tasks more manageable. By applying the elements of goal-setting theory and setting attainable and measurable goals, companies and their employees can become more accountable and perform at a higher level.
Okay, before I move the next paragraph, you can understand how the managers, senior managers, complete their task using motivation theory. The main thing is that they are the superiors. That the thing is, the many successful, that mean many are the fulfilling. We are calling that high profitable companies. That is success mean not the work success. That mean is not a bit of the glossary word. More profitable companies, more popular companies, more that great high that in high we are calling that the 10 top companies have gotten, pronounce this difference, gotten, they are through the effort of motivated employers who worked with their superiors to make their task more manageable. I mean, not because I try to use the different word to the parallelly that comparing the successful, because the successful companies the generally we can say the profitable. That means some bank is the higher profitable bank in our country. Our investing more than 1,000 million like that. It's at some task. It's we call the we were, that means we completed our task. It's like the company, the business, or that commercial level. Okay, keep it outside that one. Then the main thing is the effort of the motivated employers who worked with their supervisors to make their tasks more manageable. First thing is that a more motivated people mean that the officers, employers always engage with office work as well as their aim, their office aim also engage with the organization task. Then supervisors can easily manage their behavior inside the organization. That means that employers always keep their attention to the organization goal. That means their duty and role, as well as that they are always keep their attention. When I complete my duty and roles, it effect is directly they know when I complete my task, it will be definitely complete my organization task. They are in that mind. Then superiors, that mean a senior management level, can manage very easily that type of employer by the applying of the element of the goal setting theory and setting of the attainable. Here the point, by applying
the elements of goal setting theory and setting attainable and measurable goals, companies and their
attainable and measurable goals, companies and their employees can become a more accountable and performant at high level. Attainable and measurable goals, companies, their employees can become a more accountable and performance at high level. Because this is everything. This is the sources or the situations or the task or goals. Everything. Invisible word is motivation. Second line.
When considering what makes a successful company flourish, experts often point to bosses such as Richard Branson, the founder of Virgin Atlantic, who often is quoted as saying, "Train people well enough so they can leave. Treat them well enough so they don't want to." In other words, empower your employees to be bosses themselves, and if your workplace is a good one, they'll stick by you in your success.
Listening carefully, but
When
I'm not
considering
sorry.
what makes a
Listening
success.
carefully, this two para is a nice thing. It's a Richard Burnson, the founder of Virgin Atlantic. He says, train people well enough so they can live. Train people well enough so they can live. Treat them well enough so they don't want to. Treat them people enough so they don't want to. In other words, empower your employees to be a bosses themselves. And if your workplace is a good one, they will stick by you in your success. Is a very train people. You can train people well enough so they can live. Treat them well enough so they don't want to. Because thing, you have an ice cream. This is only I try to treat words to the explain. Treat them well enough so they don't want to. That means you have a dessert, one dessert ice cream. As well as you, this is only for you in your menu, so the single menu, the one person we are calling, oh yeah, we are calling that we are calling some one person plate, one person portion, one person lunch or breakfast or one person dinner. Then the one person portion mean menu set. It has a ice cream for dessert, ice cream, piece of apple or the one apple, one apple, and yogurt, and pudino, other one. Then they are not expect that type of dessert. Treat them well enough so they don't want to. As a training also like that. Train people well enough so they can live. Because it's a train mean they have a, when you want to live, when you can join another company, you have a good train. Now you have experience for that. In other words, empower your employer to be the boss themselves. Now you have enough courage. Your boss mean, I'll add some word here. The another word, empower your employer be a boss themselves. Then that people are work in an organization like this is my own place. But thing is, my own place meaning they are not like they are not behave like in a they are open the home environment. This meaning is, but in our country people are like that. They are, so someone can tell that one is this image that imagine this office is his own house or the belong to him, like that. But this word is employer empowered to be a boss themselves. Boss themselves mean boss are always ready to, and his expectation or the expect their year, month, and the annual target or goal. Then all employers are the like a boss imagine, boss vision, or the organization vision. That means they are fulfill that the organization aims, not their family aims in office in office work through their duties, then work. But in our country, it's a far different. They are always thinking, my place is like my the president or my home. that others are like my brothers and sisters. But they are never think in a employer not to be a think. I am a boss. I am a boss because they are always thinking I am a boss in this mind of the workplace. That means they are in a that a family mind. You know that very family that a family people how the controlling some the one country like that. Okay, like that mean that a person who in a like a boss, but is a mind is a far different. But in a this concept, in a motivation concept, the Richard Branson is a bit of the difference sometimes that might pronounce. But anyway, his concept is the employer empower your employers to be a boss themselves. That means that boss always, I told you, boss always waiting to complete his task, organization task. That all employers like that. Then you can imagine that you can imagine yourself. You can imagine. Then how the workplace. Then and if your workplace is a good one because you are the boss, then all that we are calling yeah, I'm not trying to use some the singular words, but then the workplace good. The stick by your organ, the stick by your inner your success. When you are success, your organization success. Why? You are the boss in your office. But boss mean not like your home place boss. It's a different. But in our land, our country, their boss always their boss. But the mind and behavior like they are in a home. That's the thing. This is a different. You have to understand this. Say the brother, sister, hi brother, hi sister. How about this thing in the sister? They're calling in a that manner. In a that academic level also same. You must be a boss. That means your department head want to complete, that means cover the syllabus, as well as good lessons, as well as good lectures. This is your boss why, what they need. What your boss need. They mean the management level. Then, but you are in a like you are you are in a like you are act your behavior like in your home. You are always doing like everything in a shortcut way, because you can move your duty for other one. So like that. But this thing is in the motivation theory, it's not alike in a workplace. Okay. The next one.
Involve employees from start to finish. All workers involved in a project should be included in the entire life cycle, from conception to completion. Employees will be more motivated to do a better, more thorough job if their ideas are valued, and if they can see a project through to its completion. In this way, they will own the finished product. Try inviting employees into new product meetings and asking them to come up with their own concepts and business ideas. If they feel that their input is welcome and that they are part of the creation process in the company, they will be more likely to produce quality work. Objectives should be linked to individual.
Okay, I'll stop with that next line, next topic. Here, the involve employees from start to finish. That means the involve employees from start to finish. We are trying to. I try to explain this like this way. The bit of the small example. Example is like this. The person, you know that many are the employees in a here and there in an office. But when you have a project, you have to collect or you have to invite them, join my project. Join my project, and you have to do your work till end of the project final task. And you have to motivate that person. Now you are in this project, like your project also, your life circle work. That means today you have some your homework, the routines, day-to-day things, and you have to, after that you have to move your office. Then after that, your office place, you have a project. That project also engage with your life cycle. That means it is that when its project task end, that your routine is going like a circle. That is, you have a duty, you are involved involved to that project, starting point to end point. Then when you are motivated your employer better way, I mean a better method, using better movement, then you can take the more ideas and more values, give you the more values for your project. As well as when you are giving a chance to the employer to involve in some project, they will decide, they will create some new ideas, new value your project completion. In this way, they will own the finished product. Then they are always involved this project. Then they will finish this task. They are always thinking, I done my own work, because their ideas, their values are engaged or involved in that project up to start point to end point. Then every employers give a chance, every employers to join the employer, that means product meetings. That means in our land mean in our country, that's my word. In our country, you can put any name. In our country, they are divided one project by project people, and have any extra budget for the special project, they are not invite others. They are keep it special resources, special officers in a selecting special officers for that job. When you can't come, they have any big task, can't you fulfill without other help, that project you are calling others, come and join me, and I need your help, like that. There is a project leader manager in our land, our country. If you have a special benefit from the special project, they never call other employers, other supporting officers. They are put name because they want to show that the name are there. Then the hierarchy, that means a top level management thing, yeah, that one also join with them. Then that is a no problem for that a whole department, like that. But in our country, not like that. In this motivated method, motivated theory is a far different of our motherland, mean our country, the organization behavior, far different. But in a motivation theory, we have to involve every officers to the all projects. As well as you can take ideas, you can take the value point from your project. And the start point to end point, you have to involve them to do some work to like a life circle work. Then they are try to think, you are motivate that person. He will always think, this is my own work. I have to fulfill that. I want to complete that. And I want to give some ideas for how this project will completed. Sorry, how will this project will clear? Not completed is a wrong. How will this project complete? Then the thing, the next one, if they feel that their input is a welcome and that they are a part of certain process in the company. This is a motivation point. Now, all employees engage with this project, then they have a feel, they in a mind, they are creating or they automatically develop this feeling. Now, I am engaged with my institute, my organization, my department, program processing work, company processing work, company project. It is a motivation. They will be more likely to the product quality work. Then they are not, and they are never give a chance to the outcome in a low budget, low quantity. That means low quality, quantity and quality. All employers engage this, they are think this is my own work. That means this is my own work mean, as well as they have a feel. Now I am engaged with this institute, this institute, the work in process as like a family member, but I told you that is this family and this family behavior and your personal family behavior difference. Now I am engaged with this chain. I have some role in this process, as well as they are in a feeling. They have a feel. Now I'm in a process, and this, as well as they are never give to chance to outcome low quality as well as low quantity. It is a thing. Low quantity mean that the quality is high, but the company task is a high quantity. These whole members are engaged with their own work to this project. They are always ready to complete this task, high quality and high quantity. Not we are calling in our day-to-day life, low quality, high budget, and high quality. Then in our day-to-day work, then the low quality and high quality, low budget. This is like the joke. High quality, low budget. This is depending. Then we are trying to do that, but it's a motivation point. Is not necessary add to add. Add mean advertisement. Add mean combine or collect. Then you can understand involve employees from start to finish. It is a one point. The second point, what? How to motivation join all the use for the office work. Right. The next one here.
Objectives should be linked to individual goals. There is a reason that salesmen that surpass their monthly quotas usually get bonuses at the end of the period. While not every reward has to be financial, it stands to reason that employees will be much more effective if they know that their role, no matter how small, makes a difference in the project's overall success, and by extension the success of the company they work for. Many companies have encouraged better performance and accountability in their employees by linking business goals to business objectives and team goals. It's no longer about one person, but the team, and the individual doesn't want to be the reason the team fails. Goals should be attained. Objectives should be linked to individual goals. There is a reason that salesmen that surpass their monthly quotas usually get bonuses at the end of the period. While not every reward has to be financial, it stands to reason that employees will be much more effective if they know that their role, no matter how small, makes a difference in the project's overall success, and by extension the success of the company they work for. Many companies have encouraged better performance and accountability in their employees by linking business goals to business objectives and team goals. It's no longer about one person, but the team, and the individual doesn't want to be the reason the team fails.
Okay.
Go.
This one. Objectives should be linked to individual goals. Objectives should be linked to individual goals. You know, because you had this experience, you have some big cutout that the insurance companies in our country have some the year best employer in the year, best the car insurance holder or car insurance insurer in a year, and best employer in the year, as well as have some categories: the personal insurance, vehicle insurance, best employer. Then the objective should be linked to individual goals. Is a best manager of the year. Then you can imagine yourself. Imagine mean you have to create some drawing in your mind. Draw in your mind. The manager always has some team, but he has a reward, the best manager in the year, best manager in car insurance division, because we have several teams now. Then when he has some reward as a best manager, excellent selling person, excellent salesman, like that, sales manager, as well as he must has what? So that means great, excellent performing salesman. Then the object should be linked to individual goal, as well as it is like the separate link. This all separate link take in a together, it has an individual goal. What? The best sales manager's goal is like completing more tasks. More tasks mean a more profitable car insurancing task. He won that. He had an individual goal. He rewarded something. But this rewarded has not a financial. Will not every rewarded has to be financial. While not, sorry, that I am start some middle of the sentence. While not every reward has be financial. I explained that. I told you some the excellent salesmen's performance join with the together, you are selected or you are given some amount or the monitoring or the evaluate the best manager. But in a best manager reward is what? That they are give us the promotion or some benefits. The excellent salesman. It's not only the individual case, because the individual task always complete, the manager task completed, and they will give some special rewards for his team. Now, you can understand, they usually get bonus at the end of the period. It is always engage with manager. Monthly quota usually get a bonus at the end of the period. But sometimes this rewards not only financial. Sometimes they have different things. What are the different things? Sometimes some officers have a chance to transfer the close places. Close places mean when they are resident place, have another close branch, you have a promotion as a senior manager in that area, senior manager in that district. It indirectly it has some financial rewards, but indirectly it is a bit of different reward. Then, but sometimes it has it's a reward is not a big amount, but it's a benefit when you have some outcomes. So time, and you know that the bosses mean the senior managers, why this type of transfers they are ready for the super senior managers, because that in a other hand, you can that in a when you are in an outside person, you can understand, you can take idea, understand, when you can take idea, yeah, how nice this person have the live in some main town, as well as he has a same town the managerial post also. So very nice work. But earlier he had some various areas he done his and got some experience. But we are thinking very nice, because you have to work in things, But thing is, you are in your place. Now you have to manage your area people. No any special supports, no any forcings or influencing. Or you have to show your profitable work in the end of the year more than others, because you have earlier you complete a big rewarding points earlier you complete big rewarding work because you are the best manager in the year. Now next time you can't miss that position. You can't give another person. You have to keep it your status. Then you have to never do any shortcuts work. I'm not to try to explain what is the meaning of the shortcut when you are in a close when you are in a close friends, when you are in a close relatives. Okay. I'm not trying to explain that one. Okay. Many companies has encouraged better performance and accountability in their employees by thinking business goal and business objective and team goals. Keep it in your mind, because this is don't you can take a don't mean you can take the idea when you are reading this. Many companies have encouraged better performance. It's a common thing. Every companies have encouraged the better performance and accountability in their employees by linking business goal. Why they are encouraged because they are waiting what? The business goals, the organization business goals to business objective. Why they encourage that employees? Because they want to complete or fulfill business objectives as well as business goals. When we are trying to fulfill business object to the business goal and a team goals also. It is along about the one person. That means you are in a one team. But this individuals doesn't want to be a reason the team fail. That means one person fail to complete the organization object or the object fulfilling their own business goals or the task. One person mistake. When you are check that the team performance, you can find out that. But thing is, in a company level, in organizational behavior method, when in some team, it is a team failure, but not individual failure. I'll give you example, take out from some sport. One player can't score more marks, more amount in the one match. The 100 marks or the 200, the 50, 60, not a 70, not more than 10. Then, when you check the reason, because it's individually, you can scold or you can prove this is the reason is a batsman. We are expecting more than 50 runs from this person. But when you check the situation, you check the reason. I'll give you a bit of some. You also you well-known news. He had a chance in the last 2 nights before the match we are calling loafing here and there. I'm not trying to criticize that incident in Australia. He had a chance to, what is a captain failure, manager failure, team manager failure, master in charge failure, coach failure, as well as team members failure. How this person loafing here and there last 2 nights? Loafing mean going to here and there without any reason. The person who are working or the going here and there I mean not in a specific place without reason. It's calling loafing. Loafing here and there. Then, but after the match, after lost the match, after lost the match, all are aiming their hand or the finger. This person, we are expecting this player, things X or Y, don't think about the earlier concept X and Y. We are expecting more than 80 runs from this person, this player. But he ran without others' permission last night. That is the reason. Individual doesn't want to be the reason the team fails. No longer about one person, but the team. But the team and the individual doesn't want to be a reason the team fails. When team fails, it is not a one-person reason. I will not to explain again here.
Goals should be attainable. Goals should be lofty, but realistic. An employee who believes that a goal cannot be achieved may not be motivated to work hard to get to the finish line. With attainable goals, it also helps to show the employee examples of how such goals have been achieved in the past, and to set realistic milestones that the employee knows they can reach. A clear action plan can help put those milestones on paper, with clear deadlines and checkpoints for the worker. Adapt goals as needed. Too many businesses and project managers set goals at the beginning of the year or the project and don't leave any wiggle room for reassessment. This is setting the employee up for failure. Remember that employees work best if they have feedback about the progress they are making. There's nothing wrong with setting clear goals with objectives that must be met by certain dates, but at the same time there should be some room to adapt as conditions change. That checklist that was developed earlier should be open to some flexibility, in case something unforeseen like a change in budget should occur. Measure goals in a smart way.
Yeah, I stop this, and again I give you a chance to the listening to the beginning point, because very easily you can understand here. Goals should be attainable. So very easy to understand. It's not like the object should be linked to individual goals with from how the different of the team and individual. Then you can understand these 2 points. I'll give you a chance to the take out this open meaning. I think quickly you can understand when you are listening this. This is 2 points. Goal should be attainable, as well as here adapt goal as a needed. Listen carefully, then I'll explain this one, because this is the point. Measure goal in a smart way. Yeah. One second, hear the point. Go ahead.
Goals should be attainable. Goals should be lofty, but realistic. An employee who believes that a goal cannot be achieved may not be motivated to work hard to get to the finish line. With attainable goals, it also helps to show the employee examples of how such goals have been achieved in the past, and to set realistic milestones that the employee knows they can reach. A clear action plan can help put those milestones on paper, with clear deadlines and checkpoints for the worker. Adapt goals as needed. Too many businesses and project managers set goals at the beginning of the year or the project and don't leave any wiggle room for reassessment. This is setting the employee up for failure. Remember that employees work best if they have feedback about the progress they are making. There's nothing wrong with setting clear goals with objectives that must be met by certain dates, but at the same time there should be some room to adapt as conditions change. That checklist that was developed earlier should be open to some flexibility, in case something unforeseen like a change in budget should occur.
Okay.
Measure goals in a smart way. Some experts say that goals should be what are called SMART goals, that is, they are specific, measurable, actionable, results-oriented, and time-bound.
Right, this is a point. Specific, measurable, actionable, result-oriented, and time-bound. Result-oriented, this is the one word. Specific, measurable, actionable, result-oriented, and time-bound. Can you believe your smartphone? Specific, measurable, actionable, result-oriented, and time-bound. Bond. Okay. Other point we discuss after listening.
By doing this, project participants or employees know they have agreed to results that require their full commitment, and they will be held accountable if they fall behind on their part. Think of it this way: a person who knows they need to pick a kid up from daycare before 5 p.m. or be charged extra money is far less likely to be late. The same rationale can encourage better commitment and performance from your employees. Use an understanding of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory of motivation to develop an organization that meets employee needs while encouraging increased levels of performance. The theory offers a basis for organizational development with high employee motivation to achieve company objectives. An organization that satisfies Maslow's principles can feature high employee satisfaction, excellent employee retention, and cohesive teams. Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Here, this one I'm not to explain again, but the high order need organization development. And again, I am trying to discuss this one because that other point is not necessary. But you keep it in your mind, you can read and take idea about the Maslow theory, because especially in a Maslow hierarchy theory needs for your organization behavior. But I like to explain this as smart goal in a, measure goals in a smart way. There's some experts say that goals should be that are called smart goals. That is they are specific, measurable, actionable, and results oriented, and time bound. By doing the object participation or employee know they have agreed to results to the require their full commitment, and they will be held accountable if they fall behind on the part. Think in this way: a person who know they need a pick a kid up from the daycare before 5 p.m. Or be charged extra money in a far less likely to be late. The same routine, same rationale can encourage better commitment and performance from your employee. When you are late, when you know any times the late cover, you know that late cover? Same way, you know that late cover. Some are put a late cover without late covering. It's a tire, that means train late. You are put that is a train late, not you are late. When you want to come earlier, you have to start your work in earlier, your day-to-day routine. But in our land, our country, when you are late, it's not you are late, it's a train late. Because we have a more excuse in a whatever company. Whatever, but not in the companies, especially the government office. They have various reasons. Excuse me. Yes, excuse me. Our train late. Flood, rain, and some signal failure is also train late. As some strikes, bus strikes. When bus strikes, you have a train. If you want to come in a correct time, you can come. If you need to come correct time, if you can come correct time. If you don't want to come correct time, automatically you are not in a correct time, correct place. Okay, in our country, not others country, because they give this type of example like this. When you are late to take out the kid from the correct time, you have to spend more money for the late times. When you have a late cover in your office, you put some excuse, like a train late. Can you understand what is the situation? I'm not to try to explain the why can't be a smart people, why can't be a smart officers, why can't be a smart the people also. We are also in a specific, measurable, actionable, as well as results oriented in a mind. But thing is, not a time bound. That means we are not in a time bound. We are always developing. Still, we are waiting for time. Still, we need more time. Other everything's okay, but we need more time, another time. That's the thing. We are in that boat. All are in a same boat, and that means we are in a development, or the developing country is my country. That is the thing. The other development country people always ready to give some funds like a loan. They will give you the 50% for us when they are give a profit, 40% profit, because we are in a development country. We are waiting for others. What rewards? We are not in a correct time. We are not do correct work in a correct time. That is a reason we need more time. We are waiting to that time, then that means we are in that time is a work is not, we can't do that correct work in that time. Okay, then now time is to the move the last topic, how the theory of Maslow can be applied to organization development. This one also very easy to understand, but I'll give you some bit of the explain, because you have to take idea about this, because you can apply this one, the other alpha or the XY theory or the any theory. You have to show, you have to prove when this theory you applied, when this X and Y theory, the organization development, how theory of XY theory can be applied to organization development. Okay, first you listen how the Maslow theory going on, then you can understand how the other topics. Okay, I think this is the same point in that earlier slides. But anyway, I'll start here. First, you listen carefully. If you have any the difficult point, can't you understand directly, I'll add my part. Then you can understand how the theory of blank can be applied to organization development. I give you the 6 theories. Then you can put any theories to this place and can be applied to organization development. In exam, I don't know what is into the blank. You have to fill in the blank, but I don't know what is a theory put in this blank. Anyway, listen, my dear student. It's a small job.
How the theory of Maslow can be applied to organizational development. Use an understanding of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory of motivation to develop an organization that meets employee needs while encouraging increased levels of performance. The theory offers a basis for organizational development with high employee motivation to achieve company objectives. An organization that satisfies Maslow's principles can feature high employee satisfaction, excellent employee retention, and cohesive teams. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Abraham Maslow developed the hierarchy of 5 needs in 1943. He postulated that human motivation acted to satisfy the most basic needs first, and when those were met, the individual was motivated to meet higher level needs. The hierarchy classified physiological needs such as food and shelter as the most basic needs, followed by security needs such as personal safety and job security. Social needs such as the need to belong to a group and friendship. Self-esteem needs which include recognition and competence, and self-actualization needs for growth and development round out the 5 types of needs. Organizational needs translate Maslow's needs into needs for organizational structures by identifying those that are relevant to a work environment. The most basic needs require an organizational flexibility that lets employees take breaks for snacks and meals. A stable organization with clear responsibilities provides security. Making employees feel part of a team, allowing for recognition of achievements and employee training programs can address the needs for social relationships, self-esteem, and professional development. Higher order needs. Maslow divided his 5 needs into lower level needs that were physical and high level psychological needs. He proposed that if the low level needs were met, individuals would focus on the high level needs. In terms of a work environment, if a company meets an employee's basic needs for a comfortable workspace and job security, the employee is self-motivated to fulfill the higher level needs. A company merely has to provide the opportunity to fulfill such needs by offering appropriate work. If the employee can fulfill his high-level needs by working on a team, successfully completing a project and learning new skills in the course of carrying out the work, he can fulfill the 3 high-level needs and will be motivated to do the work well. Organizational development. Applying Maslow's theory to organizational development lets you ensure that your organizational structure encourages employees to reach their full potential. While most organizations are flexible enough for employees to satisfy the basic Maslow needs, promoting self-motivation through opportunities to satisfy the higher level needs is more challenging. Hierarchical organizations sometimes limit employee interaction and the scope for professional growth. Matrix and team-based organizations often contribute to employee insecurity if there is no job after a project is finished. Their loose organization sometimes fails to acknowledge employee achievements. To apply Maslow's concepts effectively, your organization has to specifically support fulfillment of the high-level needs. Design your company to allow social interactions that form the basis of a sense of belonging, acknowledge accomplishments to engender self-esteem and provide opportunities for employees to fulfill their potentials.
Okay, I'll start the one by one here. Yeah.
How the theory of Maslow can be applied to organizational development. Use an understanding of Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory of motivation to develop an organization that meets employee needs while encouraging increased levels of performance. The theory offers a basis for organizational development with high employee motivation to achieve company objectives. An organization that satisfies Maslow's principles can feature high employee satisfaction, excellent employee retention, and cohesive teams. Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Okay, and now in this theory of motivation to develop an organization that meet employee need while encouraging increase the level of performance. The theory of a base of organizational development which high employer motivation achieve company objective. An organization that satisfies Maslow's principles can feature high employer satisfaction, excellent employer retention, and choice terms. Now, Maslow's hierarchy of need. You know that I'm not trying to add this history point. The Maslow's main point is have some the small the needs. Okay, I remember that social learning, direct learning. Then social learning categorize what? Shall we move? Okay, yeah. Here the place we have to start Maslow hierarchical theory. Then it's divide physiological need, safety need, social belongingness or the link, self-esteem need, self-actualization, actualization needs. Okay, this is the point. Okay, earlier we discussed that clearly. Now, what are the, again and again, it's going very, very quickly. That is the reason. Then, here the physiological need. That's a basic need. Now, that company ready to apply this Maslow's hierarchical needs. Now, you can understand what is this. Okay. Then, this is the Maslow's theory. Keep it that. Now I move to our last point. That learning theory is this one. It's like a learning theory. But here, right. Now, first thing is the individual was motivate the meet high level needs. The hierarchy classified physiological needs such as food and shelter as the most basic needs. This company also, I'm not to use this one, not a company, in a theory, the most physiological needs such as a food and shelter. The person who want to 3 meals, it's a providing from company, and a shelter also is the most basic need. Followed by security needs such as a personal safety at the job security. Social needs such as the need to belong to the group and friend. Self-esteem need, which include recognized competences, and the actualization need for growth and development round out the 5 types of needs. This again briefly rewrite or re-add this chapter. What is the meaning of that Maslow's hierarchy needs? In an organizational need mean that this is the depend on Maslow's theory and as well as for the development organization behavior or organization. Translate Maslow needs into the need for organizational structure by identifying those that are relevant to work environment. Now, that this is the 5 needs, translate the Maslow's 5 need, translate to organizational structure. That most basic needs require an organizational flexibility that lets employers take break of snack and meals. Then they provide snack and meals to the from organization to employers. Stable organization which clear responsibility provides security also, making employer to feel part of the team, allowing to recognize an achievement. An employer training program can address the need to social relationships, self-esteem, and personal development. Now you can understand. Then they are take out the Maslow's theory, then they are apply these theories to their own organizational structure, the transfer or the adapt or whatever word you can use, that the theories they are applied to organizational needs. The next one, the higher order needs. Maslow divide the 5 needs into the low level needs that are physical and high level and in a physiological needs. Physical and high level physiological need. He is proposed that if the low level need were met, individual would focus their high level needs. Here again I will give chance to the listen because I am jabbering again more time.
Higher order needs. Maslow divided his 5 needs into lower level needs that were physical and high level psychological needs. He proposed that if the low level needs were met, individuals would focus on the high level needs. In terms of a work environment, if a company meets an employee's basic needs for a comfortable workspace and job security, the employee is self-motivated to fulfill the higher level needs. A company merely has to provide the opportunity to fulfill such needs by offering appropriate work. If the employee can fulfill his high-level needs by working on a team, successfully completing a project and learning new skills in the course of carrying out the work, he can fulfill the 3 high-level needs and will be motivated to do the work well.
Now you can understand high order needs. Maslow divided 5 needs into the low level needs that were physical and high level psychological need. He proposed that if that low level need were met, individuals would focus on the high level needs. In terms of work environment, if a company meets an employer's basic need of the comfortable workplace and job security, when company are introducing to fulfill to the employer's basic need, after that they have idea, employer had idea, this is a comfortable workplace and I have a job security. The employer is self-motivated to fulfill their high-level needs. After that, when they're completing the physical or the low level, low level, high level, and low level, and the low level needs, they are try to self-motivate to fulfill the higher level needs. A company merely has provided the opportunity to fulfill such a need by offering appropriate work. If employer can fulfill in a high level need by working on the team, successfully completing a project and learning a new skill in the course of carrying out the work, he can fulfill their high level need, 3 high level need and will be motivated to do the work well. Now you can understand. The person in some office, that organization think, apply the Maslow theory, and they are provide and try to fulfill the basic need what the office, the employee need. Then after that, the employer got an idea and have a motivate power. I use that motivation in a high level motivation, high level. We are calling high level the high level the low level needs. Then the low level needs. After low level needs, he has the motivate to the organization. This organization and this office comfortable work for me as my job secure, never 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 be calling no doubt about it for my job security. Then after this fulfill that this low level needs, he self-motivated, automatically self-motivated, try to fulfill high level needs. That means there's like this method, this Maslow method apply for the team. They fulfill the team, all fulfill a team. That means all fulfill their work, successfully completing a project, and after that they're learning through this course good skillful skills, also develop their skills, as well as they are motivated to do some work well mean they are always, I told you that add this word in a others theory also, they try to complete work with bottom of their skills and using their all skills what they have. Then final one, organizational development.
Organizational development. Applying Maslow's theory to organizational development lets you ensure that your organizational structure encourages employees to reach their full potential. While most organizations are flexible enough for employees to satisfy the basic Maslow needs, promoting self-motivation through opportunities to satisfy the higher level needs is more challenging. Hierarchical organizations sometimes limit employee interaction and the scope for professional growth. Matrix and team-based organizations often contribute to employee insecurity if there is no job after a project is finished. Their loose organization sometimes fails to acknowledge employee achievements. To apply Maslow's concepts effectively, your organization has to specifically support fulfillment of the high-level needs. Design your company to allow social interactions that form the basis of a sense of belonging, acknowledge accomplishments to engender self-esteem, and provide opportunities for employees to fulfill their potentials.
Okay, my dear students, now you have a correct and a basic idea about how the Maslow theory apply to the organizational development organization. Final one is organizational development point, how the applying Maslow's theory to the organization development really yet to ensure that you organize a structure, encourage employees to reach their fulfill optional. This para try to explain good side and bad side, and opposite sides also. Then the person or the employer try to give his fully skillful level to their performance to the work, and they have a low level needs also. Then they have some question, what happened after I do this work? what happened after I complete this task? Okay, this is a high need. That high level need is a more challenging. You know that what are the high level needs. Hierarchical organizations sometimes limit of the employer interaction and scope of professional growth. Team-based organization often contributing employer insecurity if they are no job after project is a finish. That's the point. They have some questionable thing. This some back point mean bad point as the black hills. They are in some Maslow organization. But now you are this is I try to explain when you are applying this theory, when you are in a organization behavior subject, as well as when you are write down your answer, the time when you are write down the answer, you have to prove, you have to explain. This is a Maslow theory, how you adapt to, how you join to, how you apply. Then this type of effect, bad effect also in your organizational, where while when it apply, some bad point are in a organization development. Then it has another one. They are loser. They are loser. The organization sometimes fails to acknowledge employees' achievement. To apply Maslow's concept effectively, your organization has to specific support fulfill the high level needs. Now you can know, because there are high level needs more challenging. High level needs is more challenging. Then what you have to do, you apply through you take out the theory from Maslow theory. You know that that high level needs is more challenging. Then what happen? You have to do to apply Maslow concept effectively. Your organization has to specifically support fulfillment of the high level need. Design your company to allow social interaction that from the basic of the sense of the belonging, knowledge, accomplishment to the self-esteem, and provide opportunity to employees to fulfill their optionals. Okay, my dear students, I think time also, I use more time, but sorry for that. And today I stop my lesson. I wish you the bright future. Okay.
When we think about factors in jobs that help to influence motivation, people often look at something called the job characteristics model. All right, now JCM basically says that there's 5 components to jobs that help to influence motivation. The first of these components is skill variety. So, what skill variety refers to is how many different skills people use within their jobs. Okay, so if you imagine working in a factory where all you do all day long is you pull the same lever and you pull it over and over and over again for 8 hours, that would be a job that had very little skill variety. A job where you go and work at different stations or maybe participate in different tasks, that might be a job that has higher skill variety. So, for example, I'm a professor and I teach classes. I teach 2 or 3 different actual classes during the course of a semester. I might conduct some research. I might present research. Might participate in different activities in the college. That would indicate that I have higher skill variety because I'm engaging in different things every day in my job. Okay. Next, we have task identity, and task identity deals with how much of something you actually take part in. So if we go back to our faculty, or excuse me, to our factory example, we can think about somebody who produces just a single part to an iPhone. Okay, they only produce one specific chip. They never actually see a completed iPhone. That would be something that would be low on task identity. Okay, something that would be high on task identity would be a job where you see a process through all the way to the end. So you might think of somebody who's a craftsperson who does some type of labor where maybe they make products that are sold, and they start with the basic raw materials and they see that product all the way through to the end. Or maybe you think about a chef who takes raw materials in the kitchen and turns those into a meal. Those would be positions that might be higher on task identity. Now, task significance deals with how your work influences and impacts other people. So if your work has a high amount of impact on people, then it's high on task significance. If it has a low amount of impact on other people, then it would be low on task significance. So, for example, you may think of a doctor or a nurse who saves lives. That's obviously going to be a position that's high on task significance. In terms of a position that's low on task significance, that really can be something that's kind of perceptual, because most jobs are going to impact people in one way or another, but you just want to think about positions where people may not necessarily recognize how their work is impacting others. Those types of positions would be low on task significance. All right, and then we have autonomy. And autonomy deals with the degree to which workers have freedom in their jobs. So if workers can make decisions, they are going to be high on autonomy. If workers have very specific processes and policies that they have to follow, and they don't have the latitude to make decisions, then they're going to be low on autonomy. All right. And then finally, we have feedback. All right. And this is basically just how much information are you getting on your performance. So if a supervisor is telling you, hey, good job with that, maybe you might want to change this next time, and giving you constant redirection that helps you understand how your performance is fitting into the organization's needs, then your position is going to be high on feedback. If you don't hear much from your supervisor, and I'll tell you, there have been some positions that I've been in where I've hardly heard anything from my supervisor, then you're going to be in a position that is low on feedback. All right. And ultimately, what the job characteristics model says is that when we look at these kind of core job dimensions, they're going to influence various psychological states. And then through that influence, it's going to impact outcomes such as our work motivation, the quality of our work performance, our satisfaction, and even absenteeism and turnover. Now, we can use the job characteristics model to calculate something called a motivating potential score. All right. And the way that we do this is we rate a position on the 5 core dimensions that we talked about: skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and feedback. All right. Then we take the average score for skill variety, task identity, and task significance. So we add up those three and we divide by 3. We multiply that by the score for autonomy and multiply again by the score for feedback. And that gives us the motivating potential score. All right. And as you can see here, the higher that a job rates on each one of these core dimensions, the higher the motivating potential score, the MPS, is going to be. All right. And the higher the MPS is, the more positive outcomes we should see in the workplace, such as lower turnover and lower absenteeism. All right. The lower the MPS is, though, the less motivation we're going to see our employees have, more turnover, we're going to see more absenteeism, more negative outcomes are associated with a low MPS. Now, as we've discussed here, the presence of the core factors in the job characteristics model that we've talked about are associated with higher performance and more satisfying job performance. All right. And also what we found with some research in the field of R&D professionals is that when leaders show supportive behaviors, they can actually improve these core characteristics in the job characteristics model, thus leading to more satisfaction and better performance. Now, one of the ways that we can improve the core characteristics of JCM is through something called job rotation. Okay, and job rotation helps to address the repetitive nature of jobs, and repetitive jobs obviously have very little variety. So there's very little skill variety involved in these jobs. And often repetitive jobs have little autonomy because employees don't have choices to make. They just have to do the same thing over and over and over again. All right, so we can address these two components through job rotation. Sometimes we hear about this being referred to as cross training. But really, we have to go through cross training for job rotation to be successful. What we're doing in job rotation is we're shifting people from one task to another, or from one job to another. All right. So when I was managing in the field, there were a variety of times that I would rotate people from one job to another, from one task to another. In particular, when I was a pricing manager, I was responsible for all quotes that my company sent out. And what I noticed was that when I took over my role as a pricing manager, I had different people who worked in different areas. So different people quoted different product lines and sent things out. But what I noticed over time was that the amount of quotes that were requested for one product line were not always consistent with the number of quotes that were requested for another. So one day, my person who worked on lumber might be super busy. Another day, people who worked on trim might be super busy. Another day, people who worked on windows might be super busy. But they were rarely all super busy at the same time. Okay. So I went in and I put a job rotation system into place where we focused on training everybody in a different job so that they could step in and help when the time came that this was needed. Okay. And at first, candidly, when we look at the weaknesses here about disruptions, extra time, questions, at first my employees were actually kind of resistant to this because they really weren't comfortable with learning a new skill. But over time, we showed them that everyone had the ability to learn, and they actually seemed to really enjoy developing these skills. And it also created stronger teamwork because employees were able to help each other out when they needed help. Reduced boredom a little bit too. And what I found was that the frustration in the workplace decreased a lot because people were able to move from one thing to another and just kind of shift the work that they did and help each other out more often. Now, job enrichment deals with increasing the level of responsibilities associated with the job. So sometimes job rotation can actually support job enrichment, but at the bigger from a bigger picture standpoint, what we're looking to do with job enrichment is allow people to move up to another step in the work that they're doing. So this may actually contribute to task identity because they may see more of the work being done, and job enrichment really can be effective at increasing motivation and reducing turnover. Now, relational job design deals with connecting people in the workplace with those who are benefiting from their work. And one of the best examples of relational job design that I can think of comes from an interview with Bernie Marcus, one of the founders of Home Depot. And in this interview, Bernie talked about how important it was to connect employees to the employees and the work that they were doing to the people who were benefiting from that work. And he said Home Depot is a home improvement store. He said everybody who comes into Home Depot has some kind of problem. Maybe their toilet's not working, maybe their paint's disgusting. There's some type of problem that they're trying to deal with here. And he said what we did was we made our employees understand that they were solving those problems, okay? And that by helping to solve those problems, they were making a real meaningful difference in the lives of our customers, and doing that and getting them to understand that also helped to make a meaningful difference in their own lives. In addition to designing jobs so they can be more motivating, we can also create alternative work arrangements that help to motivate our employees. And one of these types of alternative work arrangements is called job sharing. This is a situation where two or more people split a 40-hour-a-week job. And what this helps us to do is it helps us to create situations where people who might not have the ability to work a full 40 hours can still earn at a rate that is not discounted for part-time wages. As we know, part-time employees often get paid lower rates than full-time employees. All right, this is kind of declining in use though when we talk about job sharing. One of the reasons is it can be difficult to find people who can work together and coordinate everything that has to be done with one job. The only time that I can recall really seeing this in person was a high school in an area I used to live in had co-principals. It was a job sharing situation where a pair of spouses actually split the salary and had a benefits package. But job sharing is still out there, and it is something that we want to be aware of, so that if this situation does come up where we can use it, that we can take advantage of it in our organizations. Now, what is a little more common than job sharing is something that we call flex time. And flex time is a situation where we essentially have core hours that people work. So we have basic times that we say, this is when we need our employees. All right. So the core hours, we say here it could be 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., but it's times that we're going to have meetings, times that might be relevant to our customers or our client base. These are our core hours when we say all hands on deck, so to speak. And then outside of that, people can either choose to come in early or they could choose to come in late. They can pick the flexibility of their schedule outside of their core hours. All right. So years ago, I used to be a high school teacher, and we obviously had to be present when students were present. But our superintendent allowed teachers in our school to either be people who came in early or they left late. And he said the school benefited from it because we had more coverage in the building. We had people in earlier and out later than if we all had to be in just a little bit early and a little bit late. And for the faculty, we all felt that we benefited from it because we could arrange things like picking up our kids, getting them to sports, getting them on the bus in the morning, based upon whether or not we chose to be early risers or late leaves. Now, related to this topic, I actually have some work in this area where I do some research, looks at data in a Fortune 500 company, surveyed 838 information technology professionals. About a quarter of the people surveyed were managers, about 3/4 of them were employees. All right, and data were collected every 6 months. All right, so that let 4 rounds of data collection, and it was collected at 2 different locations. All right, and what we did was we used this data, and I didn't actually collect the data. This is from a publicly available data set, but the data asked people a variety of questions, including some questions about flexible work arrangements and attitudes and outcomes that are related to them. The 2 components related to flexible work arrangements were scheduling flexibility, which asked people questions about their freedom to take days off, their choice of start and end times, taking personal phone calls, and things along these lines. And also family supportive supervisor behaviors. All right, and these ask people questions about if they could talk to their supervisor about home and work conflicts, if their supervisor helped solve some of these conflicts, all right, and if the supervisor organized work to help benefit the employees. Now, what we found as we analyzed this data is that, like you would expect, flexible work arrangements were shown to be negatively related with work-family conflict. Okay, so basically, the more flexible work arrangements somebody had, the less likely it was that they were going to find that their work was interfering with their family. All right, as a result of this, we saw that flexible work arrangements had a positive relationship with job satisfaction. So the more somebody perceived that they had flexible work arrangements, the higher level of job satisfaction they expressed. And related to that, flexible work arrangements were negatively related with turnover intentions. So the greater perception of flexible work arrangements that someone had, the lower levels of turnover intentions they express. So essentially what we're showing here in this model is that through flexible work arrangements, we can essentially work to reduce work-family conflict, increase job satisfaction, and decrease turnover intentions. Now, what's really cool about this data, and yes, I just said data is really cool, is that we had a time series nature to it, right? So we had data at a baseline time period, 6 months later, 12 months later, and 18 months later. All right. And what we're looking at here on this chart is the relationship between flexible work arrangements and turnover intentions. All right, and we're looking to see how does that relationship change over time. So if we take a look at the family supportive supervisor behaviors, that's this yellow dashed line. As we follow this here, we see that there are some minor changes here, but this relationship really didn't get weaker or stronger with time. Okay, it pretty much stayed the same. Yes, there are some minor differences, but when these were tested, there was no significant difference between time periods. All right, and when we look at scheduling flexibility, we see something very similar. Some downs, some ups, some downs, but nothing that was statistically significant. So no changes that were major in any way, shape, or form. And you could see if we plot that line, it's pretty flat there. All right, and what this tells us is that the relationship between our flexible work arrangements variables and our turnover intentions was consistent. In other words, it didn't get weaker and it didn't get stronger. All right. So why does this matter? If you ever think about when you've had a relationship with someone and it started to go bad, sometimes things get worse with time. Okay. So the more someone starts to annoy you, the more you start to dislike them, the more you think you can't work with them anymore. All right. So initially, we kind of thought that we might see something here, right? Where the relationship between scheduling flexibility or family supportive supervisor behaviors and turnover intentions would get stronger over time. So if you felt like you had no scheduling flexibility, that would be a stronger predictor of turnover as time went on. But we didn't find that. We found that these relationships were fairly stable. All right. And that's really great for managers to understand, because what it essentially tells us is that there's an opportunity for us to fix things, an opportunity for us to make changes. So just because we don't have um, some of these flexible work arrangements in place today doesn't mean that we can't put them in place and impact our employees' turnover intentions in the future. So, as we start to think about alternative arrangements or keep thinking about alternative arrangements, the next one we're going to talk about here is telecommuting. Okay, and telecommuting is basically a scenario where employees do their work from home a few days a week and they're linked with computers and phones and technology and so on and so forth, right? And telecommuting was something that there was a lot of discussion on. Um, Prior to 2020, because people didn't know if it was efficient or not efficient. But really, once the world went on hold, so to speak, with the COVID-19 pandemic in March of 2020, telecommuting became something that was a lot more common. Okay, it became something where people in various positions that we never thought would telecommute started telecommuting because of the pandemic. So the pandemic is really starting to change the way that we think about this type of alternative work arrangement. Now, telecommuting brings some advantages with it. First and foremost, it's positively related to objective job performance and to job satisfaction. All right. And one of the reasons that telecommuting could be related to job satisfaction is because of its relationship with work family conflict. By reducing work family conflict through telecommuting, we provide a pathway to increase job satisfaction. All right. It's also associated with reduced carbon emissions. So we saw this shortly after the COVID-19 pandemic began in 2020, right? When almost the entire world was either staying home or working from home or not going into work, we saw an incredible decrease in carbon emissions. So that's one example of how telecommuting can impact the environment. There are also some disadvantages to telecommuting. Okay, so from the employer side, there can be perceptions that there's social loafing, that employees might not be working the entire time. And this is where, however, employers really need to think about managing a different way. Part of the reason that they have this perception of social loafing is that when people are in the office, managers can see what people are doing. They're comfortable with that. They're managing processes. All right, when people are working remotely, managers can't see what's happening all the time. They really have to manage based upon outputs. So there's a little bit of a transition in thinking that has to be done there. Sometimes it can be difficult to coordinate teamwork. All right, it can be easier when you're in the office and you can just walk up and talk to somebody, or maybe you all work in the same space. there could be a little more challenges. All right. Having said that, with technological improvements, we are finding more and more ways to coordinate teamwork remotely. All right. It could also be difficult to evaluate non-quantitative performance. So we might have some challenges here in, well, what about things that we don't have objective data on? All right, how do we evaluate that performance? From the employee's perspective, sometimes there can be increased feelings of isolation and reduced relationship quality with coworkers, particularly when some people are teleworking and other people aren't teleworking. Those who are teleworking may feel more isolated than those who are in the office. All right. And employees may not always be recognized for their efforts because their efforts aren't quite so visible. Now, when we look at who teleworks, we can see there appears to be a relationship between education and the percent of people who do work from home. Okay, so we see over here on the right hand side that those with less than a high school diploma work at home pretty rarely. All right, but we see a much greater number here, 39.2%, according to this data from 2016, when we're looking at people with a bachelor's degree or higher. Right, and part of the reason for that is because people who have a higher level of education may qualify for jobs that are easier to move into remote locations. Um, People who don't have that high level of education, they may find themselves more in service oriented jobs where they need to be present. They may find themselves more in jobs that involve manual labor, like in a factory, in a warehouse, on a construction site. Obviously, those types of jobs can't telecommute. But over here, the people who have a bachelor's degree or higher are more likely to find themselves in an office type position where you can work remotely using a computer and a headset and tools like that. Another way we can help to motivate our employees is through something called employee involvement. And employee involvement is a process that uses employees' input to increase their commitment to the organization's success. Two of the most common types of employee involvement programs out there are participative management and representative management. We're going to break each of them down in a little more detail. Now, participative management involves getting employee feedback on steps that you're going to take in your organization. So sometimes this feedback is solicited informally, so maybe through discussing things with different people, and other times it can be a little more formal, like through a survey or some type of major data collection effort. All right, now what we do with this is we collect this information from our employees, and then as we're making our decisions, we have some understanding as to how our employees would feel about some of the impacts involved in the decision. All right, and this can be a great way to get some involvement. Um, some of the studies that have shown results here, though, have shown mixed results in terms of the effect of participative management on organizational outcomes. One of the problems that we have to be aware of is that our participative management needs to be genuine. So if we're getting people's feedback or we're conducting surveys and then we're not actually using the feedback, that could be a little challenging because our employees might not believe they actually have a voice in what's happening. Or we may have employees who have very different feelings on a situation, and then whichever side we end up going with, the other side is going to feel like they weren't heard. So that's one of the challenges with participative management. It may actually contribute to some of the mixed results that we've seen. Representative management gives official roles to employees who help to work with management in making decisions. So two of the most common forms that we see are work councils, which are often a group of elected employees who meets with management and discusses issues with them and helps inform management as to their perspective on decisions, and board representatives. And when we have board representatives, we may have a single employee or we may have multiple employees who actually sit on the company's boards. And through those roles on the board, they're able to make some decisions. Okay, challenges with this that we can see here are that one, if employees are sitting on a board, they may start to see the board's perspective on things more and maybe not advocate for employee perspectives, or if they are too confrontational, they may be viewed as adversaries and not necessarily be able to make much of an influence. So when you're selecting employees who may be your board representatives, you want to think about people who are going to continue to advocate for the employees' rights, but also do so in a persuasive way, in a way that is respectful of others, that they're going to be able to get their point across, as opposed to come across as an obstacle in board meetings. Now, we're going to move forward talking about a variety of different ways that pay can be used to motivate our employees, and how pay does motivate our employees. Okay, so one of the first concepts that we're going to talk about as we think about what to pay is internal equity versus external equity. All right, and internal equity deals with the equity of pay within our organization. External equity looks at equity of pay outside of our organization. Okay, so one of the great examples to use here actually comes from faculty, all right, from professors. So I am an organizational behavior, human resource management faculty member. Okay, people in business schools tend to be compensated fairly for their services, but we don't all get compensated the same way. So a finance professor probably makes more money than me. So some people would look at that and have concerns that that's an internal equity issue. And I asked the question, well, should I be upset that finance professors probably make more money than I do? And some people always come back and say, oh, yes, you should be upset. But other people say no. And the people who say no say that I shouldn't be upset because there's external equity in my pay. Okay. And what that means is that if we were to look outside of our organization and look at other colleges, or look at industry, if we decide to leave our organizations and go to industry, people with expertise in finance get paid more in industry than people with expertise in organizational behavior and human resource management. So even though we have what could be perceived as an internal equity gap between those two positions, there is external equity because the positions are compensated similarly to how they would be in other organizations. Now, beyond that, some organizations like to pay their leaders above the market or pay their employees above the market. And what that means is they might pay a little more than other companies. And what this does is this helps to bring you a larger pool of applicants when you open up jobs. And by bringing in larger pools of applicants, you have the ability to be more selective. Okay, I worked at one company in my career where we paid our entry level employees very, very low. And it was almost like somebody applied for a job, they were guaranteed to get hired because we couldn't afford to lose anyone who applied for a job. Other companies I've been at have paid at or above market rates, and they've been able to be very selective in their hiring processes. In addition to thinking about base pay, we're also going to talk about some variable pay programs such as piece rate plans, merit-based pay, bonuses, profit sharing, and employee stock ownership plans. So let's break each one of these down. A piece rate pay plan goes ahead and pays employees based upon the number of pieces that they produce or number of pieces that they move of a product. Okay, so instead of giving them an hourly wage or salary, what we might see is we might see somebody who works in a warehouse being paid, say, 15 cents per package picked. All right, and then they need to pick a certain number of packages in order to earn the pay that they want to earn. In a factory, we might see a wage of X number of dollars per product produced. Okay. Now, piece rate plans can help to make sure that people are working hard and that they're efficient. If you're in a warehouse and you're being paid per piece picked, you're obviously going to try to pick a lot of pieces. All right. One of the downsides to a piece rate plan, though, is that people may be a little bit less careful in their work. So they may pick some damaged pieces. They may not worry about whether or not something they produce is perfect because they're very, very focused on the quantity that they're going to produce. All right. You also can have some internal politics associated with piece rate pay plans. So you might see your more experienced employees pick the easier tasks because they know which tasks are going to be easier to get paid on. And then the reality is what you have is you have your most experienced people doing the easiest tasks and your least experienced people doing the most difficult tasks because the more experienced people know how to earn more money. Okay, but we can work around that because we can have managers assign tasks out instead of letting employees pick exactly what it is they do. The other limitation for a piece rate plan is how do you apply it to a lot of different jobs? Okay, so there are, for factories and warehouses, it can work very well. All right, but what do you do in the case of, you can't take a college professor and give them a piece rate pay plan. All right, it's very, very challenging to take, say, a lifeguard and give them a piece rate pay plan. So there's very specific jobs that this can be applied to. Now, merit pay deals with giving people differences in their annual increases of pay based upon their performance. All right, so let's say we have an employee whose salary is $50,000 a year. They might get a 3% increase if they're an outstanding performer. They might get a 2% increase if they're a satisfactory performer, and they might get no increase if they need improvement. Okay. One of the great things for the employees about merit-based pay is that once you earn it, you've got it moving forward. So if you were at $50,000 a year and you got a 3% increase, you would get a $1,500 raise, and now your salary is $51,500. And then next year, your merit pay is based upon that new base rate. All right, so that's definitely an advantage for the employee. Merit-based pay is good because it ties your reviews into your compensation. So performance reviews are very meaningful. Okay. One of the challenges with merit-based pay is that because employees earn it forever, you may have people who are very top performers for 10 years and they see their salaries increase and increase and increase, and their performance drops off, but you can't do anything to adjust their pay really to account for that. So that can be a little bit challenging. Another challenge is that the merit pools fluctuate. And what that means is one quarter we might have more money to give merit-based pay than we have in another quarter. Or we could have a situation where we have a severe equity issue with pay, and the merit pool is used to adjust for that equity issue, and then that takes away from what other people can earn in terms of merit. So we have to be careful not to make adjustments with the merit-based pay pool that are not based upon merit. Now, a bonus is it could be an annual or it could be a monthly payment that you get for satisfactory performance. Okay, this is above and beyond your salary, but it's a one-time payment. Okay, so this does not add to your salary. Bonuses can be great because if they are tied to performance, they incentivize employees to perform well. Okay, but they can also be challenging because if too much of your pay is tied to your bonus, then that creates some income instability. All right, the first management position I ever had, I basically could double my salary through my bonuses, which was nice that I could earn that much more, but it also made me very vulnerable to changes in the market, changes in company performance. And truthfully, when I had another company come in and offer me a position that was similar in compensation but had a higher percentage of salary, that was something that was very attractive to me. So if your employees have to rely too much on bonuses, you have to remember that they may be concerned about the stability of their pay. Profit sharing plans are similar to bonuses in the sense that they are one-time payments that employees get for good performance, but they're a little bit different from bonuses because bonuses typically have set amounts tied to them, whereas with profit sharing plans, we have kind of a formula that we apply to the company's profitability to pay out these payments to employees. All right, and often these payments are based in part by an employee's current wage, the hours they work, and metrics of that nature. All right. And what this does, though, is it allows your employees, particularly those who may not be bonus eligible, to benefit from company performance so they have a little more vested interest in company performance. I can tell you one organization that I worked at, the employees typically got very low profit sharing checks because they weren't performing at a very high level. And I went in and we increased profitability about 40%. in my location, my employees got very good checks that year. And one of my employees came up to me afterwards, after the checks were distributed, and said, I never got a check this large in this company. And they said, quite honestly, I didn't necessarily always understand all of your methods as a manager, but now that I see how it's impacted my bottom line, I've bought in. So from my experience, I can see that profit sharing plans, when they're communicated well and they result in the employees benefiting from them, they can be very effective. Okay. But when the employees aren't benefiting from the profit sharing plans, obviously they're not going to have that much of an impact. Next, we're going to take a look at employee stock ownership plans. And what these types of plans do is they basically allow your employees to acquire company stock, often at less than the market is charging for the stock. And it helps your employees become owners in the company. If they become owners in the company, they should care about the company's well-being. So when I was in industry at the time that I worked for a Fortune 500 company, we had an employee stock ownership plan that allowed me to purchase our stock at 10% below the market value. So immediately it was like I had a 10% return on my money. So I had a certain percentage of my paycheck dedicated to just making purchases in the employee stock ownership plan. So I was buying the stock at around $25 a share, and the value was increasing and increasing. And I think I sold it all at like $35 or $40 a share, something like that, well after I left the company. And that was a very nice return on my money. I don't really like to think about it because that stock now trades at well over $200 a share. So selling it at 40 was a pretty bad decision. But the point is, because they gave me that incentive, that 10% off to buy a company stock, every paycheck that I worked for that company, I was investing in the company at the same time. And it did have an impact in terms of making sure that I cared about the company's well-being. So do these pay plans really motivate employees? What the research tells us is generally they do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody's equally motivated by them. All right, during my time in industry, I definitely saw employees who were not necessarily motivated by bonuses or not necessarily motivated by profit sharing. But for the most part, these plans do have a positive impact on employee motivation and consequently their productivity. Now, beyond pay, we also are going to take a look at benefits. All right. And one of the things that's very important in our organizations is having a flexible benefits package. And what we mean by this is that we recognize that not all benefits packages are going to meet the needs of all employees. So one size fits all doesn't work. What we mean by benefits is we're talking about health insurance, dental insurance, vision insurance, and these types of programs. All right. So I take a look at myself. I have 4 kids. My kids all played sports. Um, Emergency room visits were not all that uncommon for us. So for me, I was looking typically for a plan that had a pretty low deductible. Okay. I also would look for a plan that maybe we didn't have to pay all that much if we went to the emergency room. Some plans you have to pay $500 to $1,000 per ER trip after insurance. So I was looking for plans that were maybe less than that. Okay, because these were the things that were important to me when I considered what my costs were going to look like. All right, other people who don't have such big families, maybe didn't commonly have as many injuries as we did, whatever the case may be, they may prefer to have a little bit of a lower monthly premium, but have to pay a little bit more if they have an accident because an accident's a little less likely for them. All right, because of these differences that we have amongst our employees, flexible benefits help us out because what we like to do is be able to have 3, 4, 5 plans that our employees can choose from. Employees can opt into dental, they can opt out of dental, they can opt into vision or opt out of vision. And this helps us meet the needs of all of our employees. And we're going to wrap up here talking about employee recognition programs. And recognition programs are just ways that we can recognize and reward our employees in not necessarily a monetary way. Okay, so it can be a verbal program of just making sure that we go around and recognize people verbally. We might have an employee of the month award. All right, some places that you go to now, you'll see that they actually have special parking spaces for the employee of the month. All right. And these programs can definitely be motivating. They have very low cost associated with them.